So, hello and welcome to the latest Travel Weekly webcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by Gus Antorcha, Holland America Line's president, who I understand is in Miami. Is that correct, Gus?
Yes, that's correct.
How is Miami today?
Sunny. It's great.
Oh, bliss.
Yeah.
So last time you spoke to Travel Weekly, you'd just been appointed as president of the line.
Right.
You've had the role for just over a year now. How do you reflect on the past 14 months?
It's been busy, very busy. But I think as a company, as a brand, we've accomplished some pretty amazing things in the last year. Right when I took over, we had just gotten everybody back home safely, our guests, and sort of began a process of really trying to get the crew back. And that was quite a process to make sure they got back home safely. A lot of countries were still shut at that period of time, and it wasn't really till September, October we were able to get everybody back that wanted to go back. We also had team members that they asked us to stay on board because they felt safe. But eventually everybody got home, and then we began a process around making sure that the ships were safe at in layup or in pause locations around the world, and then really with the announcement around Alaska, did we really get confidence? And this was just feels like forever, but it's just a few months ago, really. With Alaska and Europe and Greece, with the support of Greece, we were really able to start planning the restart. And then that kicked off a flurry of activity, making sure the ships were, brought up, the maintenance was where it needed to be. The crews were retrained. Everyone was ready to welcome guests back on board. And then, we started in July with New Amsterdam, quickly following with Rotterdam, and then we'll have a couple ships here in October. One of which is Rotterdam, which we're incredibly excited about, starting to sail.
Yes, so you've recently taken delivery of Rotterdam. Can you just tell us about the significance of the name and the vessel itself, and what your plans are for the vessel?
Yeah. So, look, this brand is steeped in history, and history is always. I love history. I love history of brands, of cultures. It's just it's so fascinating. And we've been around a long time, almost 150 years. And Rotterdam, a ship whose name is Rotterdam, has always been part of the fleet. And with the departure of Rotterdam, the R-class ship, the older ship that we had in the fleet that was called Rotterdam, I jumped at the opportunity to name our flagship Rotterdam. And so it really is a nod and an acknowledgement of the history of this brand and the traditions we have as a brand. And so I'm incredibly excited. Our newest ship will be called Rotterdam. We will be doing a cruise from Rotterdam to Amsterdam in just a few weeks here to really shake the ship down. We always do this, want to make sure we're ready for the guests. Our European sales team is planning that to get people on board and pressure test the ship. Won't be a lot, it'll be a few hundred, but it's exciting that'll be from Rotterdam. I'll be on the ship from Rotterdam to Amsterdam, and then she'll load guests she'll welcome guests to do the transatlantic.
That's really, really exciting. So this will be next month before the transatlantic, which is on the October 20th, isn't it?
I can't remember the exact date.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and will who will be on board? You said a few hundred. Would it be travel trade?
It is. There'll be some dignitaries and the like. Probably the day we are, some press we're doing in Rotterdam, and then it's mostly trade. Media will not be on. Media will be at the pier. They'll get a day visit, but we didn't want media on once media is on, it changes the whole focus of the voyage, and we're there to really support the crew as they get ready. And so we really wanted to focus, who we let on, and the purpose. The purpose is really to help the crew get ready.
Yeah, of course. And it's your flagship after all. You talked last year on our webcast about how you felt that people will cherish the opportunity to visit different cultures, post-pandemic or as we emerge out of the pandemic. Have bookings reflected that? Have you seen high booking levels, as we've emerged, towards the back end of this pandemic?
Sure, it's noisy, and I can't really comment on bookings given where we are with the earnings. I think we're in a quiet period. But look, I think we're all yearning to travel. I think the Holland America guest in particular is a guest. It's a person that really enjoys culture and visiting different cultures, visiting different countries, immersing themselves in the culture. And I've spoken to many mariners, and they can't wait to get back to travel, back to sea, back to doing all the things they love to do. I think we all do. We absolutely see it reflected in the bookings. People want to travel again, and unfortunately, the voyages that are a little call it further afield than where our guests are from. Asia. Most of our guests are European and North American. So as they think of traveling far away from what is familiar to them, we see those really. We've had cancellations in the near term. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty. But if you look at out late 22, 23, those types of voyages, I mean, there's absolutely demand, and we're selling those well. I think the challenge in the near term is uncertainty. There's uncertainty as far as the virus. Right? We've just had a Delta spike. That requires us to change, policies, procedures on board. There's uncertainty as far as requirements from different countries. The UK, thank goodness, the UK just changed. The US just changed their what do you call them, regulations, restrictions, whatever. With the UK, with Schengen countries, with Canada. So this is all it's all fluid. It's and if there's uncertainty, that creates uncertainty. I think it just makes it a little harder to travel.
But I mean, you're spot on. It does create uncertainty when there is an unexpected change. But I mean, those two events, the UK relaxing certain restrictions and testing requirements, and then 72 hours later, the US lifting its travel ban. That's surely got to be a positive environment and creates more confidence in the market. And have you seen in the last week more bookings coming from outside the US?
I haven't really looked at it in the last week or so. I could tell you, I wish they would have done it a few weeks earlier, because we had to cancel hundreds of European guests on the Rotterdam, which was very painful to me, because if you think about it, you're going from Europe to the US. I've flown back and forth. Those planes are full. The restriction, look, each country needs to do what they think is right, but to me personally, I didn't think it made much sense. So I'm very happy that barrier came down, but wasn't in time for the Europeans booked on Rotterdam, and Canadians actually, unfortunately. So, but yeah, we absolutely think. We think it's the right decision, and we absolutely think it'll drive. It'll drive bookings. It'll drive travel.
So you're operating Alaska sailings at the moment.
We are.
Yeah. I mean, how much of a help has that been for the business as you emerge from the pandemic? You've got two ships operating at the moment. One's operating.
New Amsterdam is operating round trip Seattle, and Rotterdam is operating in the Med. Look, the Alaska decision was huge. It was the ability to really get certainty around restarting in the U.S. I think the circumstances in and around Alaska really helped us push some legislation and work with the administration and the different agencies to really get specific about how we were going to start cruising again, and that's what we needed. And Alaska, oil and gas. I mean, those are the big drivers of the economy. But tourism is very real, especially for some of the places we visit. And they were about to go 2 full tourist seasons without any real volume, because a lot of these cities and towns rely on the cruise industry to bring guests, bring passengers to their city, and that was at risk of not happening. And it's just terrible. The impact on the local communities are terrible. Our tax dollars fund local schools, local budgets, small businesses. I mean, it's a very sad situation, but it allowed us to really get a productive discussion going with both the federal agencies as well as the state agencies, and we got there. We got there, which is wonderful. And then that really opened up. Okay, so now let's talk about South Florida. Let's talk about California. Let's talk about how we get operating safely. We never compromised on the safety, and I think the cruise industry and cruises. I don't think I know. We have more procedures in place to keep guests safe than I think. Someone might correct me, but then I think any other travel, hospitality sector in the world.
Can you tell us about what life is like on board with regards to those protocols?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's the crew. It's tough on the crew, but the crew are incredibly happy to work. They are. When we just did a crew video, we just interviewed a lot of our team members, and they're just so grateful to be able to work. They love what they do. It's a way they make a living. And they're incredibly excited. Now, there are a lot of procedures we put on board. They're starting from the pre-testing that needs to be done for the guests. But let me talk about crew for a moment. So we test regularly. Sometimes we test up to 50% of the crew weekly. Sometimes less. Sometimes we test a whole department. It depends a little bit. We've had some positives, usually asymptomatic, and then we test the whole department very quickly. Every 3-4 days, we're administering tests.
And will that be lateral flows or PCR tests? The antigen tests are much quicker. The rapid antigen.
We can do both. We can do both on board. When we do full crew testing, sometimes we could support shoreside on turnaround days and the like. But look, there's a heavy testing regimen. When our team members join, they're required to go into isolation for a period of time. You test during isolation, you test after you come out of isolation. They're wearing masks to work. They're wearing masks back at the house. Okay, that's hard. Those are long days with masks.
Long days, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's we're vaccinating effectively 100%, if not 99.9. I mean, we're vaccinating the entire crew. So there's a lot, but they're so happy. They're incredibly happy.
Gus, the only people who won't be vaccinated, the crew members who aren't vaccinated, is because they're medically exempt, I presume.
We are at the moment trying not to put those team members on board ships in operation. So we move them to other ships that are in pause locations. That's what we're trying to do. Now, if a captain, I mean, the reason I didn't say 100, I mean, the ship's not now in operation. I mean, last time I checked, it was 100% of the crew. The reason I don't say that is because there could be a situation. Let's say a captain's got an underlying medical condition, can't get vaccinated, and we need a captain, obviously, on the ship. So okay, well,
I understand.
And then there's testing and there's a series of protocols. But right now the ships are operating because they're just a handful. We're getting to 100. Okay. On the guest side, we're trying to create the safest environment possible, both for the guest and the crew. Because the crew stay on for their contracts, which are extended periods of time. So you have to be vaccinated. You have to test, and when you're going to and from lounges, food and beverage locations, we ask that you wear a mask. Where there's no real food and beverage operation, we're also asking that people wear a mask. And it is, look, it's an inconvenience. Certainly, it's an inconvenience, and we've had some people cancel because of the increased protocols. But I think the majority of guests, we see it because they're thankful and grateful that we're going as far as we're going to keep them safe, because that's what this is about. It's about creating a safe environment for people to enjoy their vacation, and so all these protocols that really require the guests or the crew to do something themselves, I think by and large are welcomed. And then we have all the stuff we've done, behind the scenes, improvements in HVAC, UV lighting, filtration.
Sorry, what's HVAC?
Air conditioning, air handling. So all those upgrades we've made to our air handling systems, improved our medical capability, testing requirements. We've added, medical team. So, we've made additions to, we have a health operations center. We've grown that team, and they're really monitoring and working through, the different issues that pop up on ships and make sure the teams are well supported. So we've put in a whole infrastructure that really operate behind the scenes, as they should, to make sure everyone's safe and we continue to operate safely.
Brilliant. I presume it helps that other Carnival brands have already launched, and therefore there's an information exchange between the 9 brands. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, the Health Operations Center is supporting all the brands in North America. In Europe,
it's a head office for all 9 brands that you.
Yep. Our medical team, we have emergency emergency care, emergency medicine, a specialist emergency medicine, epidemiologist, clinicians, we have a whole team that it's mostly in Miami, but there's some folks out on the West Coast and other geographies that it's a 24/7 operation. In Miami, it sits next to the Fleet Operations Center, which are really handling nautical voyage type things. But there's people around the clock there to support the ship. And when we need to, they're on the phone too with CDC, with local authorities, with the local health authorities in Europe. There's a significant amount of dialogue with in the U.S. with CDC, in Europe with the relevant health authorities.
Brilliant. And you're going to be mildly irritated with me asking this question, but how long do you foresee these protocols being in place for? I am asking you to look into a crystal ball here, but you're an experienced.
I don't know. How long do you think? I don't know.
You're an experienced, industry figure now. You were you were at Carnival Cruise Line for 11 years, I think, before joining.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I will say, look, there's two pieces to this. The first is what we're required and what either required or recommended from various health authorities all over the world. Look, the Holland brand cruises all over the world, so it'll likely be different as we emerge from hopefully this pandemic and begin to return to normal, one way or the other. So it's going to vary. It may, in different points in time, different geographies will have different requirements, and we always, we're always in compliance, and we're always working with all the regulatory authorities. So that's one element. The other element is, what do we need to do to make sure we're keeping our ships, our crew, and our guests safe? And so we may be beyond what's required because we just think that's the right thing to do, or our health team says, look, this isn't required, it's a recommendation, but we're going to require it for ourselves. And so it's gonna change. It's gonna move around. I think what will happen is we will keep certain vaccination and or testing for a while. I think what'll happen as these spikes, peak and sort of come down, I think the other requirements like mask wearing will probably, especially for the guests, will probably walk back at some point, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, the construct should be we keep all these heightened safety protocols to create as much as we can a bubble for the guest. So in their experience is as close to normal as possible once they're on the ship. And so in my mind, it's when can we pull back some of what is uncomfortable and inconvenience to guests? We keep all the other procedures in place. And then if things change and we're able to walk those back, I would as well. But I'd really start from the guest back is my guess on what we'll do. When we'll do this, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's impossible. I don't know.
You can identify the areas that it will, we will scale back at some point. I'm conscious of time, but I mean, Rotterdam's going to operate in the Caribbean. Will the ship come back to Europe at all? It was obviously built
absolutely in the spring. In the spring, she'll be back in Europe, back in Northern Europe. I'd like to do the naming in Europe. I'd like to get trade. I'd like to get press on the ship. I'd like to make it just a wonderful celebration of that ship and in our history. And so she will be very close to the Netherlands, very close to Rotterdam. And so that's my wish is that that's where we really name and welcome her in a proper way, in a more formal way to the fleet.
Brilliant. So expect a naming around spring next year in the Netherlands.
That's right.
For Rotterdam. You've said that Europe's probably the second source market for Holland America Line. Are you able to, what do you have a message for the UK travel trade? And can agents expect an invitation to the naming ceremony?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to make a big deal about this. I think, look, the four most important markets outside of the US, which is our largest market.
Yeah.
It's the UK, it's sort of the Benelux countries, Australia and Canada. Those are the four areas that are most important. So we will. I mean, what's great about having the name in Europe is, it's very easy for both UK and sort of Northern European trade partners to join us. I think it'll be wonderful. And so yes, everybody will get invited. We'll make it a big party. Hopefully, we're able to make it a big party because if you would ask me a year ago by 22, we're like this thing's gone, but. So we'll see. And here we sit at the end of 21 and it's not gone, right? So
well, fingers crossed that you get your day in the sun with Rotterdam, behind you and very much, for the naming ceremony, because I think that's what everyone wants. Gus, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Very much appreciate it. And I will leave it there if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.